So how I came to UMBC, as a college senior at Loyola, I tutored with a program for adjudicated youth called Choice. I was at Loyola College. The students came to Loyola 2 nights a week, and we tutored and fed them and did a rec. When I graduated, I went out west for a year, did a domestic volunteer program, and I came back to Baltimore to work for Choice. Craig Dempsey hired me. I interviewed in the Cherry Hill office, and I started working for Choice in 1993. I came on campus in the next year to work in the Shriver Center, where I coordinated the internship programs for several years. Then I moved over to corporate fundraising for Sheldon Capellis. I spent 3 years working in the president's office before Freeman and Sheldon said, you have to learn how to be a boss. So I went back and I was the assistant vice president for development for several years. And I became the president or the institutional advancement vice president in 2009. So what am I most proud of? That's a hard question to answer, right? There's a million people, there's 1,000 things that we've all been a part of, right? I think to me, what's really special about this place is it is a place where, and as corny as it sounds, people do believe that UMBC is this place that can transform lives. We can only be our best working with people, and especially people who we don't fully understand, people who are different than us, people who have different experiences and different histories and different values in many cases. And that has never been an impediment here. It's been something that's made us better. And so it's a hard thing to kind of distill, and it's a hard thing to describe, especially to people who are coming in from the outside or people who have had experiences at other kinds of places. But I think what I'm most proud of is this is a place that allows that to happen in a genuine and real and fun and funny way every day. And it's not an easy thing, right? And there's some times when it's really uncomfortable. But when you see it happening in the moment, and when you see an accomplishment or a breakthrough or a tragedy and how people pull together, it's remarkable. You know, I just tell people that my job is asking questions of people who are way smarter than me all day and then telling their stories, right? That's really kind of how I see my job, right? Whether it's working with students or faculty or trying to help understand what the message of the president or a dean is and helping connect people to it, whether that's a company or a philanthropist or prospective students. There are so many really brilliant people here. There's so many people who are really thinking fundamentally about how can they fix something or correct something or make it better or ask a question. That's kind of, I think, the essence of what I do. And then using that to hopefully put somebody on a pathway to be successful. There's really smart people here, so it's pretty easy. All you pretty much got to do is point them in a direction, make a connection, and then get out of their way and they take off. I'll never forget Craig Weideman, right? So John Martello hired me. I was applying for a service learning job and I was wearing, jeans and flannels, right? This was, I was still smoking cigarettes back then, I think. And John Martello said, Greg, have you thought about, I know you like service learning, I know you did JVC and Choice, but have you thought about, I kind of see you in a suit. Have you ever thought about internships? And I was like, geez, I've thought about a job, so I'll try anything that you say. But that idea of helping students put theory to practice in internships was compelling, and we did it for a couple of years. And I'll never forget Craig Weideman coming into my office one night, and it was about 6 o'clock on a Thursday night, and he had just asked, earlier in the day, he had asked me to come up to deliver a stack of resumes and to talk to an employer. And I was just wearing a shirt and a pair of pants, and he came to my office. I'll just never forget, it's 6:30 at night, and he comes to my office, he said, Greg, he had a whispery voice, and he was really tall, but he whispered like this a lot, and he said, Greg, just as a thought, if you're gonna be coming around the president's office, I would keep a tie in your office because, you really wanna make sure that people see you as a representative of the institution. And remember, this is 30 years ago, right? So everybody wore ties back then. I went home and I told my wife that, and she said, first thing she said was, I told you. And then the second thing she said was, that was a really thoughtful thing that he did, right? Pretty much what he said is, we're gonna ask you to come to the president's office more often. The work that you're doing is making a difference. This is how you have to fit into that context. And so it wasn't about the tie, it wasn't about the clothes, it was about how you gotta show up at this place to be successful. And it's those kinds of moments that I think about when I'm thinking about a new young person and say, how do I help that person be successful? I think we just have to keep caring about each other, right? So people here, they work exceptionally hard. They have really, really busy lives, and they put a lot of themselves into everything that they do, right? It's a generalization, but tell me I'm wrong, right? You can't. If you look around at the tables in an event, we've told this story before. If somebody is stopped at one of the campus maps, it's like a foot race to see who can ask people if they need help, right? That's because that's who we are. People have choices, right? They have choices with their philanthropy. They have choices with where they work. They have choices with where they live. And people have made a decision to be part of this community. How do we make sure that we know we appreciate the choices that they've made in that regard? How do we be really firm with our commitment and the values that we've built together? This idea of inclusive excellence and this idea about care and this idea about the importance of public research universities and elevating communities. We should never waver or compromise on those values, but how do we give people grace? How do we show them, how do we regularly thank them? And how do we graciously accept their appreciation when they've given it to us, even if it's meant for other people on our team? Accept it and pass it on. That's what we got to keep doing, I think.